So for this review, I don't even want you guys to write this down. You can, but watch it first, okay? And write it down at home. Work on the assignment today. I just really want you guys to have a better understanding of negative exponents. So just watch as I teach, okay? So just watch this video. You don't have to write anything down. So do you see this, x cubed over x squared? I'm going to reteach this in a different way because negative exponents, I think last time were really confusing. So how would we divide this? Well, when we divide, we always subtract the exponents, right? So from now on, no matter what's on the bottom, I want you to subtract up always, every single time. So I'm going to move that 2 up there. Do you see how it's x cubed over x squared? We're going to say x to the 3 minus 2. I'm going to subtract up. And then that's just going to be x to the first power or x. So for number 2, for example, do you see how we have x's here? So x squared over x to the 5th. I'm going to always subtract up. Always subtract up. So from now on, it'll just make it easier for you. You're always doing the same thing. So you have x squared, and you're going to subtract 5 from the top. So whatever's on the bottom, you're going to subtract. So x squared was on the top, and you're going to subtract 5. And then you have y cubed on the top, and you're going to subtract 2. So x to the 2 minus 5, well, 2 minus 5 is negative 3. And 3 minus 2 over here is just 1. Now we're going to look at our negative exponents. You see how I have a negative exponent here? Now we're going to move it to the denominator. So we have y on top and we have x cubed on the bottom, and that's your final answer. So always, always subtract up from now on, okay? So this would be the hardest one that you would ever have on a quiz, would be this. So listen carefully. Do you see how we have a to the negative 1 and a squared? Just like I said, always subtract up. So we're going to put minus 2 on the top. So a to the negative 1, that's here. And we're going to subtract the bottom, so subtract 2. Okay, we have b to the negative 7 on top, so we're just going to write that out. And we're going to subtract negative 3. Subtract negative 3, right? Because we're going to subtract the bottom. Well, the bottom this time is a negative, and we're subtracting a negative. When you subtract a negative, what does that turn into? It's going to be a positive, so we'll talk about that in a second. Now I'm going to write C3. I'm going to subtract the bottom, so I'm going to subtract a 1. Okay, so now we're collecting. So negative 1 minus 2, that's a to the negative 3. Do you see that minus a negative here? That's going to turn into a positive. So it's negative 7 plus 3, which is negative 4. And then c to the 3 minus 1 is 2. Now we move all of our negative exponents to the denominator. So c squared stays on top because this is a positive exponent. And then a cubed b to the 4th goes to the bottom, goes to the denominator, and that's your answer. Okay, now this one. The first thing we do is divide. So 6 divided by 3, that's 2. Now let's look at our exponents. You see how I have a 1 down here and a 2 up here? I'm going to subtract up, so 2 minus 1. You see I have a 5 down here and a 2 up there. I'm going to subtract up, so 2 minus 5. So now I'm going to keep my 2 the same. 2 minus 1 here is 1, so just a. And then 2 minus 5 here is negative 3. Now we're going to look for our negative exponents, and we're going to put that on the denominator. The 2a stays on the top, and the b to the negative 3 goes down and makes b to the positive 3. Okay. Again, let's look at the numbers. We have 7 over 14. We're going to divide the top and bottom by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. And now we're going to subtract up. So we have a squared on the top and a cubed on the bottom. I'm going to subtract 3 from the top. We have b to the negative 2 on top. Right here, I'm going to rewrite it. B to the negative 2 on top. And I'm going to subtract a negative 3. Subtract a negative 3. When I subtract a negative, remember that turns into a positive. So I'm going to keep 1 over 2 the same. That's just going to carry down. 2 minus 3 is negative 1, so a to the negative 1. This is going to be a positive. Minus a negative is always a positive. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1. Which one's negative? That negative 1 right here, a to the negative 1. So that's the only one we're moving to the denominator. So it's 1b over 2a. And you could have kept b to the 1, a to the 1 if you wanted to. It's not necessary. That's why I just took it out. Okay, last ones. So let's take a look at this. The first thing we're going to do with this whole thing is multiply 2 and 5. 2 times 5 is 10. Then we're going to collect like terms. What's a to the negative 5 times a squared? Well, negative 5 plus 2. Don't we just always add those across? So negative 5 plus 2, we always add. When we're multiplying exponents, we add the, when we're multiplying variables, we add the exponents. So it's negative 3. Okay, now let's look at the b's. So 6 plus 2 is 8. Which one's negative? That negative 3. So we're going to say 10b to the 8th over a cubed, and that's your answer. Okay, and number 7. Last one. We're going to distribute that negative 3 in. Now, watch this one, because this is 4 to the negative 3. People get confused with numbers. 4 to the negative 3, right? Leave that there for now. We also have a to the negative 3 times a to the negative 4th. So I just rewrote a to the negative 4th over here. 4 to the negative 3, that's going to go to the denominator. We need to make that positive. All of them are negative, right? Do you see how the 4 to the negative 3 turns into 4 to the positive 3 when I move it down here? And then I have a to the positive 3, a to the positive 4. I'm going to put a 1 on top. Now we're going to multiply this out. 4 times 4 times 4. That's going to be 64, so I'm going to write 64 down there. And we can add these exponents because they're both a. A to the 3rd, a to the 4th, that's a to the 7th. And that's your final answer.